In 2004, a game asked you a question that no game had ever asked quite so directly. Are you good or evil? And didn't just want your answer in a dialogue box. It wanted to write the answer on your face, in your eyes, in the horns growing out of your skull, or the halo floating above your head. Fable didn't just track your morality, it put it on your body. And for 20 years, that image, the halo, the horns, the idea that your choices will literally shape who you are, became the thing people remembered most about the series. But Playground Game just got rid of it. And the man who entered it said, and I quote, "Yeah, that's a real shame. I don't know why they've done that." So today on Silver's Edge, we're going to talk about why that decision was made, why it matters far more than most people realize, and why this might actually be the most interesting thing about a game that's been in development for 6 years. Let's dive in. Setting the stage. Let me give you the full picture before we get into the argument. Fable, the reboot, releases February 23rd, 2027, developed by Playground Games, the studio behind the Forza Horizon series. It's been delayed twice, first from 2025 to 2026, then most recently from fall 2026 to February 2027, with Xbox citing that it needed a dedicated moment away from major competition. GTA 6 was specifically mentioned as part of that calculation, to tell you how seriously Microsoft is taking this. Furthermore, the game is a complete reboot, not a sequel, not a remake, a fresh start set in a reimagined Albion, with a new hero, new story, and crucially, a new approach to the thing that defined the original trilogy: morality. In the original three Fable games, your moral choices physically transformed your character. Good deeds gave you a glowing halo, luminous skin, and almost angelic appearance, while evil deeds gave you horns, scars, dark energy, or demonic silhouette. The transformation was dramatic, visual, and completely tied to your behavior. But Playground Games confirmed earlier this year that this system is gone. What replaces it is something called a reputation system, localized, built around how individual NPCs and entire settlements perceive you based on what they've witnessed you do. The game's general manager, Ralph Folsom, described it this way, and I quote, "We pursued a much more shades of grey approach to morality, where the things you do are the things you do, and if you do them enough, or if enough people see you doing them, you'll gain a reputation in that particular settlement or area of the world for doing that thing." And then he added something that I think is the most important sentence in this entire debate, and I quote, "It's why we say our game will never judge you, because the people of Albion will." Chapter 1: The Original Sin. Before we can understand what is lost or gained, we need to be honest about what the original morality system actually was, because nostalgia has a way of smoothing things out. In the first Fable game, the moral alignment was tracked on two axes: good versus evil and pure versus corrupt. Every action you took, buying property, attacking civilians, completing quests in specific ways, moved a needle, and that needle rewrote your appearance. At maximum good alignment, you glowed, literally. A halo hovered above your head, children followed you in the streets, villagers cheered as you walked past. But at maximum evil alignment, you had horns. Dark energy crackled around you, people fled or cowered in your presence. It was dramatic, it was theatrical, it was completely, gloriously binary. But here's the honest truth that the nostalgia often skips over. It was also deeply simplistic. The system had no real moral nuance. Good and evil were objectively defined by the game. Giving money to a beggar was good, killing a chicken was evil. There was no room for context, no room for difficult choices where both options had legitimate justification, no room for being genuinely complicated. You were the hero with the halo or the villain with the horns. The game decided, and the game showed everyone. Furthermore, the original trilogy is linked with the concept of good and evil, but morality in video games has moved on to intervening periods. That's Playground's own framing, and they're not wrong. The binary system worked brilliantly in 2004, partly because nobody else was doing anything like it. It felt radical, novel, expressive, and the visual feedback was genuinely exciting. Watching your character physically transform based on your choices created a sense of consequence that most RPGs of that era could only gesture toward. But calling it deep moral design would be generous. It was more like moral cosplay. You picked a costume, saint or demon, and the game dressed you accordingly. So when Peter said that's a real shame about its removal, he was speaking as a person who entered that cosplay. And there's real love in that reaction. A love and accuracy aren't the same thing. Chapter 2: The Replacement. So, what did Playground actually build to replace it? Here's where it gets genuinely interesting. The new repetition system tracks your behavior independently across different towns, cities, and settlements. You don't have a single global morality score. You have a web of localized reputations, each one reflecting what specific communities know and think about you. spare someone's life in Silverbrook, and you become known as merciful in Silverbrook. Negotiate your way out of a conflict, and you become shrewd. Buy expensive clothes, and you become rich. Fire range attacks at flying enemies, and NPCs develop opinions about your combat style. There are dozens of reputation modifiers, a word cloud of adjectives that accumulate and shift based on what you do and who witnesses it. But here's the part that's genuinely clever. You can travel to a new settlement where nobody knows you and start completely fresh. Your reputation doesn't precede you all across Albion, it lives where it was built. This creates something the original system never could, the possibility of being genuinely different people in different places. A hero in one village, a villain in another, a charming rogue in the third because you were, because different people saw different things. Fable's general manager put it this way, and I quote, different people in Albion will have different perspectives on the things you've done, which again kind of mirrors the real world. That sentence is doing a lot of work because he's right. The real world doesn't have a morality meter, it has perception, it has reputation, it has the gap between who you are and who different people believe you to be. Furthermore, there is also a detail that raised some eyebrows. You can pay to reset your reputation. Go to the town crier and settlement, hand over enough gold, and they'll spread a new narrative about you. Your reputation becomes purchasable. Some people saw this as a flaw, a way to bypass the consequences the system promises. But I would argue it's the most realistic thing about the entire design. Because in the real world and in Albion's history, reputation has always been purchasable by those with enough resources. That's not a bug. That's a feature that says something uncomfortable and true about how social standing actually works. Chapter 3, The Real Loss. Here's where I want to push back against myself a little, because I've been making the case for the new system, and I believe that case. But I don't want to be dishonest about what was genuinely lost. The original morality system did something that no amount of reputation word clouds can replicate. It externalized your identity. When your character grew horns, when strangers could see by looking at you that you had chosen a life of evil, that visual information changed how you inhabited the game world. You walked differently, you made different choices not just because the game rewarded them, but because you had committed to a version of yourself. The appearance locked you into an identity. An identity commitment is a powerful psychological force. When we visibly signal who we are, through appearance, through behavior, through the signals we send to others, we become more likely to act consistently with that signal. The halo didn't just reflect your choices, it reinforced them. It made being good feel like a real ongoing project, rather than a series of disconnected decisions. The new system is more realistic, more sophisticated in every technical sense, but it comes at a cost. The dramatic clarity of the original, I am the hero with the halo or I am the monster with the horns, is replaced by a shifting web of regional adjectives that nobody outside the game's UI can actually see. You can be merciful in Silverbook and heartless in Bowerstone, and the only one who knows is you and your reputation menu. That's more real, but it's less visceral, less theatrical, less the kind of thing you screenshot and send to a friend. The original system understood something about games specifically that the new system has traded away. That games are one of the only mediums where choices can literally reshape the protagonist's body. That's not just a mechanical choice, it's a statement about what games can do that nothing else can. However, Playground has decided that realism serves this game better than theatricality. That might be the right call. We'll find that out in February 2027. But Peter's quote, that's a real shame, isn't just nostalgia. There's a real design philosophy in it worth taking seriously. Chapter 4, A New Direction for RPGs. Fable's morality decision isn't happening in isolation. It's part of a broader shift in how RPGs think about player choice and consequence. The binary morality system, good versus evil, light versus dark, paragon versus renegade, dominated RPG designs for years. Mass Effect, Knights of the Old Republic, Dragon Age, the Fable trilogy itself. These were enormous, critically acclaimed games built around the premise that moral choices could be reduced to a slider. And players loved it, not because they believed morality actually worked that way, but because clarity is satisfying. Knowing exactly where you stand, watching a meter move, seeing your choices quantified, that's satisfying. But something changed. Disco Elysium arrived with a morality system so complex and genuinely philosophical that it made every previous RPG moral choice look like a multiple choice quiz. Your choices in Disco Elysium didn't make you good or evil, they made you a specific kind of person. Optimistic or cynical, idealistic or corrupt, and the game never told you which is right. Furthermore, Baldur's Gate 3 let you be a villain with a genuine internal logic. It let you make choices that made complete sense from your character's perspective, even when they were objectively harmful. The world responded, but it didn't judge. Cyberpunk 2077 built an entire city that felt morally irreducible, where almost every faction had legitimate grievances and no clean answers existed. The industry has been moving away from binary moral simplicity for years. Fable's new system isn't revolutionary in this context. It's playground games catching up to where the best RPG design has been heading for a decade. But here's what makes Fable's specific version of this shift interesting. It's happening to a franchise whose entire cultural identity was built on the binary it's now abandoning. This isn't a new IP choosing a new reputation system. It's a beloved series deciding what it was famous for no longer serves what it wants to be. And that's a much harder and more courageous decision than just designing a good morality system for a new game. Chapter 5: The Question Nobody Asked. Here's the question I haven't seen anyone ask in the debate about Faber's morality system. What is morality in a video game actually for? Not philosophically, but practically. What is the player supposed to feel when a game tracks their moral choices? In the original Fable, the answer was clear. You were supposed to feel like a person whose choices had visible, permanent, and undeniable consequences. The halo or the horns was proof that what you did mattered, that you had become something. But in the new Fable game, Playground's answer seems to be different. You're supposed to feel like a person navigating a social world where your reputation is real but contested, where different people know different things about you, where the same action can make you a hero to one community and a monster to another. Those are both legitimate answers to the question, but they're completely different games. The first is about identity, the second is about perception. The first asks, who are you? The second asks, who do different people think you are? But here's what I think is generally exciting about where the new Fable game seems to be going, because the gap between those two questions is where the most interesting storytelling lives. But whether Playground has actually built a game rich enough to explore that gap, or whether the reputation system will ultimately feel like a more complicated version of the same more cosplay, we won't know until February 2027. But the ambition is genuine, and the conversation it sparked is the most interesting one the gaming industry has had about morality in years. Conclusion. So why did Fable drop its morality system? Because Playground Games believes that in 2027, with 1,000 unique NPCs, a fully seamless open world, localized reputations that shift and breathe and remember, they can do something more interesting than halos and horns. They might be right. The new system on paper is more sophisticated, more realistic, more genuinely reactive than anything the original trilogy attempted. But sophistication isn't automatically better, and realism isn't automatically more meaningful. What the original system had, in all its beautiful binary simplicity, was theatrical power, the kind of dramatic clarity that made people feel something immediate and visceral about their choices, the kind of visual storytelling that you don't need reputation and UI to read. Peter called it a real shame, and I understand why. Not because the new system is wrong, but because something specific and irreplaceable is retired along with the horns and the halo. But whether Playground has built something worthy of their retirement, that's the real question the new Fable has to answer. And on February 23rd, we'll find out. But what do you think? Is the reputation system a genuine evolution or a loss of identity? Is realism worth trading for theatricality? Tell me in the comments down below. I'm Silver, this is Silver's Edge, and if you like watching videos like this, then don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Until next time, stay silver.